Hi everyone, this is Ravi. Welcome to Tricentis Tosca API automation tutorial. As you all know, I've already published 5 different lessons covering different topics of API automation by using Tosca. From lesson 1 to lesson 4, I've covered the basic topics like introduction to API services, an introduction to API scan component in Tricentis Tosca, and then what are all the options that are available in API scan component while scanning your services, and then how can you scan API services by using Tricentis Tosca. And from lesson 5, which is our previous lesson, I've started teaching you how can we actually automate API test cases by using Tricentis Tosca. So my previous lesson was the part 1 of API test case automation. This is our lesson 6, which is part 2 of your API automation concepts. In this lesson, you will learn how can we create API modules once you export the API scan results to Tricentis Tosca Commander. And also, you'll learn what do you mean by business parameters, and then how can you create business parameters for the created API modules in Tricentis Tosca. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on bell icon, you'll receive notifications whenever I publish more videos. So what is our lesson objective? Our lesson objectives are, we are going to create business readable modules from exported results of API scan, which is nothing but API modules. So what do you mean by API module? So in this lesson, you will become familiar with 3 things within Tosca Commander. First one, API modules. So API modules contain technical information imported from the API scan. So we have already imported the technical information from API scan in our previous lesson. So I would recommend you guys to visit my previous lesson before you watch this session. And then what is the second one that you are going to learn? You will become familiar about business parameters. So business parameters are elements from scanned code used in the test case. So these business parameters are not same as the business parameters that we used in reusable TestStepBlocks in my previous old automation specialist level 1 concepts. Okay, so these parameters, business parameters, are not same as those business parameters that we used in reusable TestStepBlocks. And then you're going to become familiar about action modes. So action modes determine what Tricentis Tosca will do with the business parameters while they are being tested. Okay, so now let us take a look at coffee shop modules that have been imported or that have been exported from API scan into the Tricentis Tosca Commander in our previous lesson. For that, let me go to Tricentis Tosca. If you see here, if you observe closely, the modules, the get shop has two modules got created for get shop, because the request and response views in API scan has a different information. So that's why the API scan, whenever you export the results into Tricentis Tosca, it creates 2 modules. One is for request, another for response. If you see here, get shops has a get request and get response. Post shops has post request and then post response, and delete shops has delete request and delete response, because the request message structure will be different and response structure and information will be different. So that's why the API scan, whenever you export the results to the Tricentis Tosca, it creates two modules for every API service. And one more thing is, if you see the structure of your modules and the structure of your test steps, it follows the same structure that is available in API scan. So this is my API scan, right? So get, post, and then you have a delete here. So the same structure, get, post, delete is following. So it is recommended to rename all of your modules in a sequence order, the way you want to execute. Okay, so it is best practice to rename them. So in real time, I would have renamed these. Let's say the first I would like to create a shop. That's why I'm going to rename this as 01 create shops request, 01 create shops response. And then I'm gonna verify once I create a shop whether the newly created shop is available or not. So then what I'm gonna do, 02 verify shops get request, 02 verify shops get response. And then I'm gonna validate delete function, 03 delete shops request, 03 delete shops response. So this way you need to rename your modules in a such a way that you are going to execute in the sequence order, right? And then you should also be familiar with the test case configuration, test configuration tab from UI modules that we created in our previous Tricentis Tosca automation specialist level 1 lessons. Okay, I would recommend you guys to visit my previous lessons, right? So these modules are same as your UI modules, but the test case configurations tab is almost same, but there is a big difference in API modules compared to your UI modules. What is the difference? The main difference is technical view. So this technical view is not available in your UI modules. Okay, that we covered in automation specialist level 1. So if you observe this, the technical view tab is new to us. Okay, so you can see the technical view is same as the message section of your API scan. So if you see here, this API scan, let's say I want to see API scan section of post coffee. So this is same as your technical view of the module, right? So technical view of your module is same as your API scan message section. Okay, and then the first pair of your modules, these two, the first pair of modules has the same name, 01 get shops, 01 get shops. But here the first one is 01 get shops get request, 01 get shops get response. Okay, so now let us go back to our slide, our next slide. Our next slide is, so the contents of the modules are similar to the request and response of the related API message. So request and response are independent from each other in Tosca. So meaning that different business parameters can be added to each module. So let's say if you want to automate a request message, then you can add your own business parameters for request message. If you want to automate a response message, you can add your own business parameters in your response message. And then the recently created test steps are similar to the ones created using modules from your XCAN in our previous lessons of Tosca Automation Specialist Level 1. You see here, whatever the test steps that got created here, right? These are almost similar to the test cases that we created or the test steps that we created while automating your UI test cases. And business parameters will update automatically whenever there is a change in the API scan message that I'm going to cover in our next lessons. So we have not created any business parameters as of now, right? You can create business parameters for your modules so that you can parameterize the business parameter, or you can use the business parameters to automate your API test cases. So those business parameters will be updating automatically whenever there is a change in API scan message. Okay, how that I'm going to cover in our next lesson. So if you see here in the test steps, since all the test steps run as part of our first test case, so you can merge or you can drag and drop all these requests into one test case, one single test case. What I'm going to do, I'm going to simply drag and drop everything into one single, drag and drop, and then drag this and drop here, drag this and drop here. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, done. So that means, see here, delete shops, post shops request, post shops response, delete shop request, delete. Now you can rename this as API test cases. Okay. So what we did, we have actually dragged and dropped all of our. Let me just delete these test cases. Okay, let me delete these test cases. So because these these test steps, I would like to execute these all test steps as part of only one single test case. So that's why I dragged and dropped all my test steps into one test case, one new test case. Okay, so that is done. And then, so the business parameters are business. So if you see here, we are going to create business parameters for these modules. So business parameters are the business relevant elements of a message, such as name, ID, and address. So let's say I'm opening this one. Okay. So if you see, this is your elements of your request message, right? So these elements can be added as a business parameters. Okay. So let us go back to our slide 5. Okay, so if you see here, the business parameters. So business parameters are business relevant elements of a message such as name, ID, address. As I told you here, for example, city, country, ID, name. These are your elements, and these elements can be created as your business relevant elements, business parameters. And then business parameters remove the need to look at complex coding of the API. Therefore, it is easier to explain a non-technical user exactly what test steps are intended to do. And then the recommended way to create business parameters is using the technical view tab. So here, so the recommended way of adding business parameters is by using technical view. Okay, and then let's create business parameters for module 1, which is create shops or post shops. In our case, this is post shops. So let me create first business parameters for my post shops post request. Okay, what I'm going to do here, first select a parameter and click button add. So let's say I want to create a business parameter for city. I'm going to select this and then I'm going to click on add button. As soon as I click on add, you see now a business parameter called city has been added to the module, and whole line does not need to select. You need not to select entire line. Okay, just select part of the line and click add. Let's say I'm going to select this part of the line. That's it. And then click add. See here, country has been added. Right? Now, business parameter city, country, both are added. And then additionally, if entire block of the code is selected, then multiple attributes can be added at once. How? Let's see here. let's say I want to add these two business parameters. I can simply select this entire multiple lines of code. Okay, and then add. We observe closely the left side. So now ID and name both together. That means multiple business parameters has been added, right? And then if you go to our slide 6, let us go to our slide 6. Okay, so before we go to the slide 6, let me also show you one more thing. Okay, so we added business parameters, but there is another thing is you can add business parameter not only the elements that are present in your technical view, but also you can add, let's say, go to your response. Let's go to response. Let's say, let us select status code here. Now I want to add a status code as my business parameter because I want to validate the response whether I am getting 200 okay or not. So that's why it's very necessary for me to add business parameter for status code also. You select this one and simply click on add. If you observe closely here now, the status code is added as your business parameter, right? Not only this, you can also add the response time also as a business parameter. Select this and click on add. So now your response time also added as your business parameter. You can add anything, not only this. If you want to add header also, you can add header also as your business parameter. Let's say here, header, any component you want to add as your business parameter, you can add. So that's the advantage. And let us go to our slide, next slide. So here, any part of the technical view can be added as a business parameter. What are all the different things that you can add? You can add response time as business parameter, method as business parameter, endpoint as business parameter, individual rows in the parameters you can add as business parameter, header can be added as business parameter. Okay, so now let us see some best practices. Any changes made in API scan will not synchronize with the modules or test cases imported into Tosca after they have been exported. So if you go back here, so once you export any API scan results into your Tricentis Tosca commander, right? So these details will not be updated automatically, will not be synchronized automatically. You need to make changes. Basically, the changes will need to be updated manually or by using update button in API home menu. Let us go back to our Tricentis Tosca. So if something on the server within the API changes, then your business parameters and the relevant test cases has to be updated. Otherwise, if you run the test case, your test case is going to fail. Okay, so let's assume your post shops or create shops. Here, the technical information related to city has been renamed as town. Then the corresponding business parameters and the test cases need to be updated. Otherwise, whenever you run your test case in a scratchbook, then your test case is going to fail. So to update the information, what you need to do is just need to select your technical information in the technical view. You need to select the element that got changed and then click on update. This will update the technical information of your modules as well as your test cases automatically. Hope you understand, right? So if there is any change in the technical information of the element at server side, then you need to select that particular element and click on update so that the changes will be reflected in your technical information modules as well as your test cases. Update button updates changes made to the API scan after it has been exported to Tricentis Tosca. So now in slide 7, let me go back to, let's take a look at our Tricentis Tosca. Let's go back to Tricentis Tosca, and here let's take a look at verify shop module in Tosca. Okay, so if you see here, this is my verify, this is my verify shop module, correct? So now the response returns, let's say here, if you see here, the response, the verify shops response returns all the shops that are available in the system, all the shops. Whenever I execute this, it returns all the shops that are available in your system, right? So all of the shops in the response could be added as a value ranges to use in the test steps later. Okay, so instead of adding each individual item, you need to highlight the curly braces. Let's go back here. So now I want to add these all responses as a value range. What you need to do? You need to place your cursor at the first curly braces here. Instead of adding each item, highlight. You need to highlight the curly bracket here. The curly bracket, the top of your payload, and then click on add. See, observe here. Observe this one. As soon as you add, what happened? A new business parameter called item is added now. Item. Now, what you're going to do? Now, select all items to be included in the value range and then click on add. So, what I'm going to do? I'm going to select all these items from here to here. Then I'm going to click on add. What it is going to do? See, now I can see it created all the business parameters: city, country, ID, name, right? All these business parameters have been selected, and now these city, Los Angeles Falls, Vienna, right? All these will be added into a value range for your test case. Let's go back here. You go to here items, right? I can see now all the values from my technical view. All the values from my technical view has been added to your value range. So these values from your value range can be used in your test cases or test steps, as we did in our earlier sessions where we learned automating web UI or web application, right? So you understand, right? So basically you can add all the values from your technical view as a value range into your business parameters. City has all the values related to city. And then country, business parameters has all the values from your country, right? The same way ID and name. Okay, so this is very important concept. And then now, as I told you, the business parameter city, country, ID, name can be added. We already added them. These parameters are now saved as a group with the business parameter called item. So what happened? First we selected a top curly braces and then click on add. It created a new business parameter group, and then rest of all the business parameters added under the main group called item. What are all the business parameters? City, country, ID, name are added under a business parameter group called item. Okay, so this is the way you can add all your business parameters. And then business parameters can also be added as a buffer instead of adding in the ribbon. So let's say if I want to add a business parameter as a buffer, right? You just need to, instead of create, let's say select city, instead of clicking on add, you just click on buffer. Then what happens? This city will be added as a buffer. And then default action modes. In the test case that was imported along with module, right? In the test cases that imported along with the modules, the business parameters have been synchronized automatically as test step values. And if module was created from a request in the API scan, the default action mode will be insert. When a value is filled in, and insert allows Tosca to create objects in the system under test using the API, and it writes a new value. If the module was created from the response in the API scan, the default action mode will be verify. If you are creating any module from the request, then your default action mode will be insert. If you are creating modules from the response, then the default action mode will be verify. And verify will compare the value in the test steps with that in the API. So the text entered in the value column is case sensitive. So this brings us to the end of our lesson. If you have any queries, leave your queries in the comment box. I'll try to respond to your queries. Thank you.